Now, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has reversed Liz Truss's plan to allow fracking and has paused the approval of new fracking sites. The move has been met with concern from many who feel the UK's energy sector is in dire straits ahead of this winter, and we need all the help that we can get. Many, including the head of Quadrilla, the largest UK fracking firm, have voiced complaints about the constant flip-flopping on the fate of the UK's energy sector. It's what I call the fracking hokey-cokey. Well, with me now is Conservative MP for Workington, Mark Jenkinson. Mark, good man, nice to see you. I want to ask you, and I say, come on, Conservatives, is this really a government that's on the side of the Workington man, or indeed woman, who are worried about paying their energy bills and are absolutely terrified about their mortgage?
Well, look, Dan, I've always taken the view, thanks for having me on, by the way, I've always taken the view as a Conservative that it's not for government to stand in the way. It's not for government to decide if fracking's viable. It's not for government to decide if it's profitable or if it'll shift any energy prices necessarily. It is just not for government to stand in the way. And if we're going to stand in the way using seismic movements like we did in 2019. And our manifesto commitment, by the way, was just that we would continue fracking if the science can prove it's safe, and it does. If we're going to ban fracking on the basis of seismology, seismic events, then that will also have a knock-on impact on geothermal energy and, of course, future construction.
Yeah, so is this a sign then that, you know, Rishi Sunak is saying, well, to hell with Britain's energy security, instead I want a virtue signal to the green extreme?
Well, I think it's a sign that number 10 is spooked by fracking. Last week we saw number 10 spooked by fracking. I was in the Whip's office up until Thursday, and a week on Wednesday we had a vote on fracking. Labour tried to take control of the order paper, quite an obvious confidence motion in the government to try and to hand Labour control of the order paper. Everyone agreed it was a confidence motion. We'd got the number of absolute abstainers down to 7, and that's how it ended up. But in the meantime, number 10 got spooked by fracking, and that ultimately their overruling of the Whip's office ultimately brought down Liz Truss's government. And here we see, just a matter of days into the job, and number 10 spooked again by fracking. We had a perfectly reasonable position, Darren, and that is that local communities were able to make their own decisions on fracking. And that to me is absolutely what we should be about. If a local community wants it, who are we to stand in the way?
I want to put to you this piece on the Sunderland Air Show, Mark, being cancelled for net zero. I know it's not in your patch, it's in mine. And it's not a sign, surely, of local authorities, another sign of local authorities beginning to make the drastic decisions that are, of course, necessary prerequisites of our net immiseration via net zero. I tell you what, I loved that air show as a kid, and it breaks my heart to think that the next generation won't be able to enjoy being a spectator to some of that, you know, pomp and circumstance in our air by our RAF. I mean, what do you make of the fact that this sort of thing's happening? There's this miserable approach to policy making in Britain, whilst China is burning more coal than Sauron's Mordor. I mean, it's obscene.
It's a nonsense, and it really is a nonsense. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. There are people who will not be happier until we are colder and poorer. There are policies. I mean, obviously not the air show, but there are policies that people on the left predominantly advocate that will be harmful to lives. It will kill people. My constituents didn't vote Conservative to be poorer and colder, but they do support getting to net zero as quickly and sustainably as possible while it's not making them poorer and colder. And that's the key. 2050 is 28 years away. We've got a lot of time for technology to step up and deliver us the things that we need to get to net zero without making my constituents colder and poorer. And that there is a perfect example of the nonsense at the altar of net zero.
Exactly. Mark, in a sentence, very briefly, if you would, what do you make of the Prime Minister not attending the COP27 climate conference?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's a real statement of intent from the Prime Minister to focus on domestic issues. The Prime Minister never normally attends COP26, just once every 4 or 5 years. We've seen Ed Miliband kick up this week about it. Ed Miliband attended on behalf of Gordon Brown. Absolutely. It's a statement of intent, I think, from the Prime Minister to focus on domestic issues, which is what my constituents want to see.
Absolutely. We'll leave it there. Conservative MP for Workington, Mark Jenkinson, thank you very much for your time.